welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our practice question series where we're going through a set of RBT practice questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Amanda leaves 2 cookies on the counter at her apartment. Her roommate, after a night out, comes home and eats the cookies. Amanda sees this in the morning and never leaves her cookies out again. What changed Amanda's behavior? When we talk about behavior change, we're talking about typically consequences because consequences lead to future change in behavior. Our consequences are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Reinforcement increases future behavior. Punishment and extinction decreases future behavior. So if Amanda never ever leaves her cookies out again, did her behavior increase or decrease? It decreased. So we've got to have some sort of punishment or extinction consequence. So immediately we rule out reinforcement. So if we look at A and B, these are out. Her behavior was not reinforced. So now we have to ask ourselves, was it C, positive, or D, negative? And when we talk about positive and negative consequences, did the stimulus in the consequence was something removed or added as a result? Well, in this case, Amanda left 2 cookies on the counter, and then what happened? Her cookies were gone. So she left the cookies on her counter, and then the cookies were gone. So the consequence was the cookies were removed. Amanda's cookies were removed because her roommate ate the cookies. So Amanda's behavior was punished, not only punished, but D, negatively punished. Go through each consequence question methodically. Once you do a few, you're going to get quicker. Once you do more, you're going to get even quicker. And eventually, these are going to become second nature, and you're going to have no problem at all with consequence questions. Johnny is watching the news. The weatherman says, "We expect a hard freeze tonight." Johnny then gets up and goes to protect his house's pipes. What is the SD in the situation relative to Johnny protecting his pipes? So let's start with what is an SD. An SD is our discriminative stimulus. It signals that a consequence is available. It also evokes behavior. An SD is an antecedent. All those things are going to help us answer this question because we're looking for the SD relative to Johnny protecting his pipes. So we need an antecedent before Johnny protected his pipes that evoked his behavior and signaled that a consequence was now available for Johnny engaging in that response. We know Johnny was watching the news and the weatherman said, "We expect a hard freeze tonight." When the weatherman said that, Johnny got up and protected his house's pipes. So what is the SD here? A, Johnny watching the news. Johnny did not go protect the pipes until the weatherman said, "We expect a hard freeze." The news alone did not evoke Johnny's behavior. The news alone did not signal to Johnny that something was available for protecting his pipes. And so what did the weatherman saying, "We expect a hard freeze tonight," signal to Johnny? Well, it signaled to Johnny that either he doesn't protect his pipes and they might burst due to the freeze, so punishment is available, or it signaled to Johnny that if he goes protect his pipes, there's reinforcement available for protecting the pipes because you avoid them bursting. So the weatherman saying, "We expect a hard freeze tonight," is signaling to Johnny there's a consequence available for protecting the pipes. So the weatherman's statement is the SD. You could also say the weatherman's statement is a motivating operation because it increased the value of Johnny protecting the pipes. See, Johnny protecting the pipes was his response. It wasn't the SD. And then Johnny's pipes not freezing is a potential consequence, but it's not an antecedent and it isn't the SD. The SD in the situation is the weatherman's statement. Which of the following answer choices represents a functionally equivalent behavior for escape, maintain, task avoidance? We need to talk about functionally equivalent behavior. Functionally equivalent behavior means or is when we teach a replacement behavior that serves the same purpose as the old behavior. If you're trying to teach a functionally equivalent behavior for escape, maintain, task avoidance, then you need to teach a behavior that is accomplishing the same goal. Meaning, our function is escape maintained. The behavior you teach needs to be escape maintained. So A, the learner asking for a break. Is the learner asking for a break escape maintained? Task avoidance. Sure. If they get the break, they're escaping and they're avoiding the task. What about B, the learner playing with his pencil while completing a worksheet? Well, if they're completing the worksheet, they're not escaping from the task. So it's not escape maintained and not engaging in task avoidance through escape. C, the learner engaging in self-stimulatory behavior when left alone. We're not worried about what they're doing when left alone. We need it in the context of task avoidance. But we don't know if they engage in self-stimulatory for escape. So C isn't relevant. And then D, the learner singing while working in an attempt to get his mom to sing with him. What does D look like to you? To me, it looks like attention-based. It doesn't seem like he's getting out of the task, but he is getting his mom's attention. So the only behavior here that meets the function of escape, which would be the equal function for other behavior, is the learner asking for a break. After an assessment, your supervisor wants you to help develop a strategy for teaching your client how to restock shelves at a grocery store. The goal is to help your client maintain a job. What should be the first step in your plan if you want to use task chaining and you have already identified reinforcers? All right, pretty straightforward question. They just throw in a little curveball. First, the question wants to know, if you're using task chaining, what's the first step? So what's the first thing you do with task chaining? In addition, you've already identified reinforcers, meaning we don't need to do preference assessments. We don't need to do reinforcer assessments. We've already done that. So if we've already identified reinforcers and now we want to start task chaining, what's the first thing we need to do to teach the client to restock shelves at a grocery store? A, forward chaining, and B, backwards chaining. Before we can actually teach the chain, what do we need to do? First, we have to actually establish the chain. What chain are we teaching? How do we identify the steps in the chain that we're teaching? Well, we have to conduct C, a task analysis. So before we can teach task chains, and before we can engage in forward chaining and backwards chaining, we have to do a task analysis because we need to know what steps are we actually teaching. And in a task analysis, we take the behavior of restocking shelves at a grocery store and we break it down into steps which create our task chain. What about D, a preference assessment? Now, if we haven't already identified reinforcers, then there's potentially a reason for you to identify preferences first. We've already done the reinforcer assessment. We know the reinforcers. We're past that. What we have to do now is identify our steps in the chain. And the way we do that is through C, a task analysis. Connie is teaching interverbals to her client. Connie says 1, 2, 3, pauses, and then says go, but the client says nothing. Connie then says 1, 2, 3, and the client says go. Connie then reinforces the client. What type of prompting is Connie delivering? We have a prompt question. For prompts, we're going to push you forward as technicians. You want to think first in terms of response prompts, stimulus prompts. Response prompts act directly on the response. Stimulus prompts manipulate the stimuli associated with the trial. What has Connie done here? Well, she's teaching interverbals. 1, 2, 3, go. In the first trial, Connie says 1, 2, 3, pauses, and then says go. Go, in this context, is what? It's the prompt. And what is Connie trying to achieve by saying go? Well, we know from the next trial that she wants the client to say go themselves. Because when Connie in the next trial says 1, 2, 3, go, Connie delivers reinforcement. So the go was the prompt to get the response from the client. So this is a response prompt. We're acting directly on the response. Did Connie deliver partial physical prompting? Well, of course not. She has not engaged physically with the client at all. She's simply giving this verbal prompt. So Connie is delivering a verbal prompt. You could also call this modeling. One of those situations where it could be both. But modeling is not a choice, so verbal works just as well. Not a gesture. A gesture is a motor movement from the teacher trying to evoke a response. And then it's not positional. A positional is a stimulus prompt that moves or relocates a stimulus. Connie is simply delivering this verbal prompt. She says, 1, 2, 3, go. Then Connie says, 1, 2, 3, and the client says, go. Connie's prompting out go through verbal prompts. Momentary time sampling can be useful if you need to do other things while also measuring behavior. But momentary can sometimes blank behavior, which is less than accurate. Momentary time sampling is when we record a response at the end of an interval. So if we have 10 minutes and then we have 1 minute intervals, we're going to record a response at the end of each 1 minute interval. Now, it can be useful in certain situations, but also can lead to some inaccurate data. And why is that? Can momentary data or momentary time sampling underestimate behavior? Sure, because the only time you're measuring behavior is at the end of that interval. If we have 1 minute intervals and that behavior happens for 59 seconds and then stops at the end of the interval, you're going to mark a non-response. You've already underestimated the behavior in the very first data point. What about overestimate? Well, let's flip that. Let's say the behavior doesn't happen at all for 59 seconds, and then it happens right at the end of the interval, where you're going to record a response. You've already overestimated the behavior. So momentary time sampling, depending on when the behavior occurs, can underestimate or it can overestimate. It's rarely going to do neither, because momentary time sampling is not that precise of a measurement. So sometimes it's going to underestimate and sometimes it's going to overestimate. So what can it do? But momentary sometimes do what? Well, it can both underestimate and overestimate. So our answer is D, both of these. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Let us know when you pass. Spread the word. Work hard. Study hard. See you soon.